common sense isn't particularly common. Now, while that's a cliche, it's quite true. And similarly, there are some very, very basic, fundamental building blocks to a full, good, content life that also tend to fall by the wayside due to many reasons, sometimes conscious, at other times unwittingly. When it comes to health, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to illness, prevention, cure, this is truer perhaps than it is in other realms of our lives. And sometimes we go so far away from those fundamentals that it really does require a little bit of intervention, perhaps even a leap of faith to restore certain fundamentals that are absolute prerequisites. It might even be fair to say, therefore, that one needs to be slightly gutsy. The glory of gut is what we are calling this particular session of talk therapy, brought to you by Driveway Devi. I'm Karthik on behalf of Driveway Devi. And although we have had the privilege of interacting with numerous nutritionists and individuals involved with health from a food perspective, today is slightly different and extremely special because the individual joining us, has come into this sphere of work from a very, very personal place and space. Also, the way she is approaching the entire sort of practice of nutrition and holistic nutrition, lifestyle coaching is from a very, very fundamental place of addressing metabolism in our bodies. I'm very privileged that we're being joined by Dipshikkha and her wonderful company brand called the Gut Feel Program. And I was quite fascinated when we chatted while we were planning this session to know her ethos in terms of nutrition and wellness, and of course the inextricable connections between the gut and the mind. So it's going to be a wonderful session. I would like to officially welcome Dipshikkha and thank her for making the time whilst she is escaping the drudgeries of contemporary life in this very, very idyllic setting. So, Dipshikkha, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Karthik, for inviting me. It's a privilege and honor for me as well to be part of your talk therapy. I am really touched by your very glorious and kind introduction on the topic of something as, I should say, organic and basic. Short introduction to myself. I am Dipshikkha, born Assamese, but I like to say that I'm Indian because I've lived everywhere but Assam. I grew up in Calcutta, and then I lived in Chennai, and then I lived for almost 22 years, almost half my life in Bombay, and now I'm back in the south of India in Mysore. My qualification is that of a mass communication expert, so I love conversing, talking, communicating with people. The medium or the message doesn't matter, it's the people to whom I communicate. That's the most important part of the funnel, so to speak. And I came upon gut feel program and nutrition by chance, actually, during COVID, when we had a lot of time to sit at home and wonder about what to do, because that was a very we were forced to think, and some people took advantage of that time at home in the lockdown, and some people, as I've observed, have not even made any changes in their life despite having such a huge episode. Like, and a pandemic also did not change them. So yeah, that's me.
Well, the
I'm
thing
looking
is that it might sound a bit facetious, but perhaps it's better for people to have maintained status quo than having attempted various things and people around them, friends and family, being sort of coerced into praising what was really not worth praising. Particularly, so many individuals who started cooking and fancied themselves, the new sort of hot shot chefs on the block. A lot of that food was quite sort of avoidable. So that's the other side of it, I suppose. But on a perfectly serious note,
Yeah.
you've given me the perfect segue to my first actual question, which was going to be that tell us a little bit about gut feel program in the sense of how it came about, because of course, as you yourself said, your area of expertise, both professionally and academically, is something entirely different. That is what you've dedicated most of your life to. How come you sort of came into this? How was gut feel program born?
Sure. So it was, as I said, during COVID that the idea of getting into nutrition germinated in my mind. And the day I formalized it was actually January 24th, 2024. And I kind of formalized all my experience, thoughts about food, about being active, about being energetic in that program. And it's not like I'm new to fitness and nutrition and being basically healthy, because that started much earlier in my life when I
Sure.
lost my father. Yeah. So that was a big jolt. So since the time I was 22, that's when my father died, out of metabolic syndrome, actually. It was hypertension that took his life. Something as simple as BP, which we tend to just ignore as, oh, I'm fine, I just have blood pressure. But that blood pressure can become fatal due to many reasons, of course, but that took his life. So I was always very conscious about the time that we have because of that very early and sudden death. So it's a full circle that I started working and helping people with metabolic syndromes now, but the germination, probably the original idea had already been seated about wanting to be healthy, wanting to be energetic and active for the
Forgive
rest of
my
my life.
naivete, Dipshikkha, but I think I represent a critical mass of the layperson's voice, which
Mhm.
is that when a profound event like this occurs, like the passing of a very, very dearly loved individual, there are, of
Mhm.
course, various realizations that people can have and tend to have. It isn't
Right.
always the case that it sort of instigates and births this kind of a realization. Number one. Number two, connected to the same thing, is that fine, somebody passes on essentially from a cardiac event. One would still not necessarily draw that connection between it having been a metabolic a sort of a distress, and would confine it pretty much to what your cardiologist would say, and you'd sort of work to a certain extent in maybe making a little bit of lifestyle changes, and that too in your very, very limited micro construct. I just want to
Mhm.
understand what brought about this larger association in the first place, and then the sort of need and very sort of impassioned desire to proliferate and propagate it.
Mhm. So yeah, I am adding the word metabolic syndrome post facto to the death of my dad. At that time, when he was just dead, I did not know the reason or anything. It's just over the years I realized that that particular episode really was a pivotal point in my life. I mean, everybody has a pivotal point, and I faced the ultimate truth, which is death. So life became worth living because of the death. Now, you're right, not everybody looks at a horrific and very tragic episode like a death of a father, suddenly that too. Good night, daddy, the previous day and the next day gone. No,
Sure.
no, even not even an opportunity to say goodbye, nothing. But I somehow took actually I took aspects of my dad because he was a very happy-go-lucky kind of a person. So he went away quite happily without feeling any pain, nothing. So, but I kind of took that cause forward. For me, I think if I can continue to live the way he does, but
Hmm.
with a little bit more care to my health, then I'd be better off. I mean, I wouldn't suddenly go too prematurely like the way he did. So that was in that sense, I mean that the genesis or the need to be healthy arose from that point of view. So I took my dad's qualities for sure. I'm more like my dad than my mother in terms of just generally being spontaneous and
Sure.
doing
Sure.
everything right now,
Disposition,
right?
personality. Yeah.
Correct. That's all like him. But the tweak that I've done is I've been very conscious to have
Right.
balanced my life
Yeah.
and not gone the other way
Right.
or not like taken. So the birth of gut feel program happened because of the fact that metabolism is basically how our body digests food and produces energy. So, and that is the engine of our body. So if you don't maintain the engine of a car, for example, it'll stop, right? So same metaphor really. We need to keep the engine oiled. We need to give the right fuel and not necessarily only petrol. You should switch between different kinds of fuels,
Sure.
which we don't. And that's why gut feel program was born because it is the driving force in our body. It's called the Manipura chakra also as per Ayurveda. Manipura means the place of gems. So it's a very valuable part of our body, which we tend to actually ignore even because it's like such a complex working that and it's so automatic that we don't consider it to be a very important part. We are
Hmm.
more concerned about the heart and for
Exactly.
yeah,
That's precisely what I alluded to earlier when I said that, one doesn't make that association because
correct,
it is these absolutely basic, innate things and facts and functions that we
yeah,
overlook.
correct. And so, but my orientation was because I want to be active all the time, because I want to be energetic, and the engine is what actually drives us. That's why I kind of focused, narrowed down on that. I read a lot about the gut and how it's really the gateway to everything. It's our first line of defense in terms of microbial attacks, pathogens.
Right.
If your gut is not healthy, you can fall sick very often.
Hmm.
So, one of the reasons that people catch colds very often or fall sick is because of a weak gut.
Hmm.
Secondly, it maintains all hormonal balances in the bodies
Right.
of all tissues, of all organs. So if you have a certain imbalance in hormone, it'll go back to a bad gut.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the third and another very important aspect of what the gut is also the fact that it is where the food gets metabolized into vitamins and minerals. It's not like you eat an apple and it automatically you get the vitamin A in your body. That conversion from the apple to vitamin A happens because of the healthy gut.
Hmm.
So we have literally millions and millions of pharmacologists in the form of little tiny bacteria that breaks down food.
Hmm.
And most often we don't consider them because they're invisible. They're actually more than the number of cells we have in our body. The number of bacteria in our body is, I think, about the last count I read was 3 trillion cells. I mean, bacteria,
Hmm.
and we have much lesser cells in our body. So that bacteria are the pharmacologists that actually extracts nutrition.
Hmm.
Therefore, I wanted to invest in that part of the body more than anything else because I feel if you look after the gut, you kind of preempt any other ailment.
Wow, makes sense. I want to focus on two specific sort of areas. One
Mhm.
is more in terms of the theory part of it, in
Yeah.
the sense psychoeducation, and the other aspect is how you sort of deliver this guidance, support, wisdom through your specific program and practice. And in
Mhm.
the process, I'm going to take the liberty of asking you some terribly naive questions, so please bear with me. Um, the first thing is, and I think it might be worth repeating. And
Mhm.
so, could I ask you to briefly sort of encapsulate or recap this very, very inextricable relationship between the gut and the mind, which of course has been spoken about a lot, and there is a general awareness of it. But just to repeat, and then I will sort of bung in my next question with this only. I would
Mhm.
then want you to extend that and also explain, really, in the simplest terms, um, metabolic syndrome and how that may or may not connect with the mind as well. Because, of course, we are a mental wellness sort of platform, and
Yeah.
that is our key area of interest.
Sure. So, like to continue from the previous point of the microbes in our body, they are the ones who are as I said, the tiny pharmacologists and that break down food. So, if your gut microbiome is not active and the microbiome, the bacteria are inactive, then whatever you eat, whatever healthy foods you eat, will not get broken down, will not get absorbed, and will not get transported. So, in that case, for example, the brain is 75% fat.
Hmm.
And if your food intake is such that it doesn't have good fats in it, then your bacteria will never be able to deliver that fat that is required in the brain. So there you would have again issues of the brain not being functioning in the best possible manner because it's deprived of fat. That's one direct gut brain axis, which we keep talking about how the brain and the gut are totally connected.
Hmm.
Secondly, serotonin, dopamine, these are feel good hormones, happy hormones. They are produced by the gut bacteria actually. Almost 95% of serotonin is produced by the gut bacteria. So these are receptors that tell the brain that, we should feel happy or we should feel rewarded. So if your gut bacteria again is not active and not able to produce all the hormones, then the brain doesn't get those receptors to respond adequately towards any event that happens in our lives. So there's a huge connection between the two. And even if you dial back a little bit, the food that we are eating itself plays a role in our moods, basically.
Certainly.
And most of us are eating sugars. And sugar is one food that the gut bacteria detests. In fact, it kills the gut bacteria. So I, in my plan, keep saying eat for two, your gut and you,
Hmm.
because we eat because sugars, because it's addictive, right?
Right.
We love a dessert, we love something sweet. It gives us an instant high, and then the crash also comes instantly.
Yeah.
So it's a really, according to me, more than cigarette, alcohol, and drugs, I would think sugar is the silent killer in our
Most
country.
definitely. Most
You know,
definitely.
it's socially sanctioned. There's nothing evil about it, but and it just creeps in from a very young age, from the formula that you're giving to your child.
Hmm.
From that stage to as you progress, you're constantly feeding yourself with sugar, and that has a bad effect and impact on the gut bacteria, which gets deprived. The food that the gut likes is fibers, probiotics like garlic, onion, and then kefir, any kind of fermented foods. That's what the bacteria thrives on, not sugars. And we're giving ourselves mostly sugar. So the first step is, of course, to eat well.
Hmm.
And the second step is for the eat well in a way that the gut gets also nourishment, the gut bacteria gets nourishment. And then the gut bacteria can deliver the essential nutrition, minerals, vitamins, fats to various organs whenever they need it. That's when all your organs will function. That's why metabolic disorder or metabolic syndrome is a malfunctioning of the digestive system.
Hmm.
That's why it's
So,
called
so, so,
metabolic
so
syndrome.
forgive me for interrupting. Just before you extend your response to the metabolic syndrome part of it, just to recap or sum up in
Mhm,
very, very crude terms, and so we're understanding you correctly,
mhm.
there are critical functions that the gut must be able to perform in order to
Right.
absorb, stroke, break down foods, physical or signals from the brain, which it is unable to do if certain if certain components are missing.
Raw materials, yeah,
Raw material.
ingredients.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. So now, um, when it comes to metabolic syndrome, how do we see this then extending?
Right. So metabolic syndrome is basically conditions like hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular risks. Those are the
Why
three
is it?
main.
Why is it that lay people have not really heard this uh, term itself? Why is it
Correct.
so? It's not really in common parlance.
True. Because the there are two factors. One is that everybody, the nutritionists, doctors, all of them say, oh, you got this condition, whether it's a heart condition or a diabetic condition, and they put it all into being fat or overweight, you
Hmm.
know. Whereas being fat and overweight is actually an effect, and the root cause of that is metabolic syndrome, which is your body's ability, your digestion system's ability is compromised,
Right.
not able to break down food. So when I say that you are diabetic and that's one kind of metabolic syndrome, it's because again goes back to what kind of food you've been eating, what kind of stresses you've been going through, and therefore the condition of the microbiota, and therefore if the microbiota is not able to produce the essential vitamins and minerals to replenish your cells, then your pancreas will be affected. Some people's heart is affected because there's too much fat in the diet, maybe cholesterol,
Hmm.
thickening of the arteries, age, whatever.
Right.
But it's all finally all connected, right? If you it starts from what you eat, which is why the gut feel program emphasizes 80% on nutrition, and therefore, after a good diet and a balanced diet, your microbiota is active and thriving, and then you deliver health to all the organs. So, if it's a cardiovascular risk, it's probably because of stress. If it's a woman has an estrogen imbalance, it's again possibly because of poor diet. And again, it all dials back to the gut because the gut is producing all the hormones, and the imbalances are occurring because it's not getting the right raw materials, ingredients, as we said. Food doesn't just magically transform into minerals and vitamins
Of
and
course. Of course.
doesn't get delivered. Yeah.
No, we take that point. Now, isn't I'm merely trying to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bit sort of simplistic to say pretty much all conditions trace back to this?
I wouldn't say it's so much simplistic. It's the process, the biological process by which the body produces energy. Why do we eat? I'm asking you back the same question. Why do you eat? Apart from the
Uh,
pleasure of
yeah, so I was going to say that in my last dialogue around nutrition and food, I had put myself firmly in one of two categories, and mine being live to eat.
okay.
So wrong person to ask that question to.
If you live to eat, apart from the tasty food that you want to eat, and the pleasure senses are being stimulated by good food, that's all, that is fine. But the output of food is basically energy, right?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
So that's why metabolism is that's the meaning of metabolism,
Hmm,
simplistic form of
hmm.
but I don't know why people don't focus on the food aspect. They don't focus on the combination of food that they're eating. They have a very monotonous diet. Means usually it's rice and roti centric in India. In the West, it's usually only meat, 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 meat. So there is no balance in either of the two diets, frankly. So it's a combination which is good for the body, good for the gut, which will produce the best kind of energy in the most efficient manner. So if you ignore that main component that gets into your gut from your mouth, and that's something that you can control actually.
Sure.
You can't control, this is what I tell everybody on my plan, that if you cannot control anything outside of yourself in this world, anything can happen, any calamity can come,
Yep.
but you can control what goes inside your
Hmm.
system.
Uh,
So
I want to move to the practice part of it now in terms of your specific engagement with your clients. But very quickly before that, another sort of slightly cheeky question, rather, or I'm seeking your view on this. You had mentioned earlier, and quite rightly, that so much of our mood tends to depend on the kind of food we've eaten and consumed. Is it not, though, a bit of a chicken and egg situation? Because so much of this is also depending on one's mood, you will eat X, Y, or Z.
true. Yeah, that's true. But then it's not so much chicken or the egg. I would say it's more like a symbiotic relationship, really.
Right.
A sound mind will produce a sound body.
Hmm.
and vice versa. It both, neither can be ignored basically. So that's where I think I am a little different from other nutritionists, because I approach gut health and general physical energy in a very holistic manner, because it's not just about physical fitness and physical well-being through food. It's also mental well-being. So food and mood, as I told you earlier, also sugar is a big issue in our country.
Sure.
Most of us are addicted, or
I
we are
think it's
fueling
quite
ourselves
global, the
only with,
sugar obsession. Yeah.
it's like शुरू से ही हम बोलते हैं, बच्चे को मुंह मीठा करो,
Absolutely.
it's a
I mean,
it's
those
a
very, very strong cultural associations of celebration, of any kind of achievement, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we've been talking about your neck of the woods vis-a-vis India. I mean, Bengal is obsessed with mishti. They've given us the best mithai. So all of that,
true.
absolutely. So now,
And sugar is a, yeah, sorry.
no, no,
I just
please,
wanted to
please.
complete the thought
Yeah, yeah.
about sugar. Sugar is a high, basically. It's a
Of
mental high.
course.
It's a it's a big shot of dopamine. Immediately you feel very good and euphoric. But the crash follows very quickly, versus having proteins, which is again, this is the double whammy in our country. People are addicted to sugar and they are protein deficient. So these two together creates a very, very bad situation by the time a person is 35, 40,
Right.
or for women when they enter perimenopause, because protein actually keeps you feeling full. It takes longer to digest, about 4 hours. Whereas having sugary foods makes you keep craving it, number one. Mentally, you're dependent on it. It's an addiction, as I said.
Of
And
course.
then you want to keep having it.
Yeah.
Frequent eating. That's another problem. So all these three affect the gut bacteria, and then affect the mood as well. So protein is something that should be upped in everybody's diet. It's not, it's been compromised, because either they are vegetarian, or even if they're vegetarian, they think that खाना तो खा लिया, दाल तो ले लिया, चावल तो खा लिया. They don't see food as separate elements.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, those are absolutely
Like they say,
critical points. Don't dispense with more free advice. Keep it for your sessions. It's very sweet and generous of you. I think the Marwadi in me is protesting a little bit.
true, true. But I normally, again, I said I'm different from the other nutritionists, because this is not my only source of
Yeah,
income,
of
I
course.
suppose.
Sure. No, but let's come to your
Yeah,
the
yeah, let's.
way in which you
Yes.
engage. So there are all manner of nutritionists and coaches, and they all have what they see as the best sort of way that works for them and for their clients in terms of their ethos of their practices and their delivery mechanisms. There are some who are extremely cut and dry, and you will sort of get, a chart from them, and that's about it. Then there are those who will, sort of counsel you as you go along, and it'll be this hand holding sort of thing. So we want to understand
Yeah.
a little bit in terms of how you tend to approach your practice in your engagement with your clients, and also a little bit about whether you work with individuals, whether you work with groups as well, and a slightly sort of gendered lens to this, if you can also share.
Sure. So I'm a consultant primarily. So therefore, I'd like to work one on one. And being a communications background person, I like telling stories, and I make the whole communication very interactive. It's not like a one way approach. And that's possibly because, as you know, I'm also a marketing advertising
Mm,
person. So I brought those skills into my consultation. So therefore, I don't have one size fits all
mm,
kind of a plan. I
mm,
actually talk to people, and I have very different approaches for different kinds of people.
mm, mm.
Therefore, I don't do a mass or group sessions yet. I might in the future. It's there in my head that companies and corporates want to make their employees more healthy.
Right.
So
No,
those kind of,
again, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but also it might be worth sort of see. I'm dead against standardized education, so I appreciate when an individual says that, obviously, how can there be one size fits all, particularly in things of this nature? Having said
Right.
that, one can also think of it more in terms of a group or a cohort where, for instance, there's a group of ladies who are perimenopausal. So, they will have certain things that
Well,
will unite them and commonalities.
right. True. Yeah, those kind of things I could do for sure. But right now, for the last two couple of years, I've been doing it on a one-on-one
Right.
basis, and I take my time. And unlike there's definitely no Marwari blood in me. I don't want repeat customers. So my approach is very simple. It's like you come into my plan to change, to transform.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to give you a quick fix. That's a crash diet which will get you results. It's not about the kilos ever in my plan. It's all about re-energizing, rejuvenating, repairing, healing. Because the fundamental premise I'm working on is that you have to first get healthy to lose weight, and you can't just lose weight and become healthy. Most times people are focusing on the end result, and I keep repeating myself that weight loss or weight gain is an effect.
Mm,
The cause of weight loss and weight gain is something is wrong with your digestive system. You're not being able to cope with the food that you're eating, or you're not eating correctly. So let's get back to the basics. Let's get healthy from inside. Let's change habits. And that's where I think I really deviate from most nutritionists, is because I concentrate on the behavioral change in a customer, which is actually not very pleasant
mm.
because it requires a lot of patience.
Of course.
People for 20 years they've been eating in a certain manner, and I'm trying to break that in 90 days, and I actually give a deadline of 90 days.
Mm,
It's called the 90-day gut feel program.
mm, mm, mm.
So that's my approach. So if because it's personalized, it's customized, and then it's time bound also, and it's behavioral change led
I
plan.
do see, and I take your point because I see myself this unhealthy obsession with this symptom obsession, and it's across the board. So many of us. I'm not even going to say the world or people or them. So many of us are guilty of quickly googling our symptoms when there's something, when we're feeling unwell, and we pretty much go to the medical professional and say, okay, this is what I have, just write the prescription. So, you know,
Before the doctor even has to
yeah,
tell you, you already decided your treatment.
absolutely. So there is that, but yeah, it makes absolute sense to obviously address the core reason. I had another question, which is, slightly controversial. Um, how do you personally, with given that you're doing this now very seriously in the sense of, you're very keen on it, you're very passionate about it. How do you rationalize or see, not rationalize, but how do you view this whole thing of any service that is being offered by an individual who has the academic and scholastic degrees versus just a heap of experience?
True. I come across that a lot. In fact, a lot of my um, questions, the first question some people do ask is, what have you done? Have you studied nutrition? And it's a 5-year course even. So, and how are you so sure that it's going to work, not work? So I don't usually try to convince anybody about anything. So my approach is that I'm building a brand, I'm building a certain persona, and it's a little broader than just gut. In my personal capacity, I'm more like a lifestyle coach. I present my life literally
Mm,
as it is. What you
mm,
see is what you get. There's no filter in my posts. And that is what has worked for me, because a lot of women particularly are attracted towards my way of life because they see me at 57 years climbing a mountain, for
sure.
example, or or doing things that normally they wouldn't think that they could do even, so I'm like a ray of hope in their lives,
Right.
literally. So my approach is slightly broader. I attract people because of my lifestyle. And then when I get into a conversation, I'm talking about life and food and eating and behaviors, I mean, how we lead our life. So it's not really from a very scholastic, technical. I don't call myself a dietitian
Mm,
anyways.
mm,
Feel
True.
great with Dipshikkha. That's my tagline actually. Feel great with Dipshikkha is like is actually very broad. So yeah, it's something that's a work in progress, and I might even do a formal course, but I've never been one for degrees and diplomas. I am a master's degree holder in mass comm, but I've done all kinds of unrelated things. I ran a pizzeria business for 9 years in Bombay, you know.
Wow.
So, and I'm working as a marketing manager in a diamond company. So I'm not the journalist I was supposed to have become with that degree. So I think we discount our life experiences as being irrelevant, but actually no experience is irrelevant in life, right?
Well, you do seem
I
to
think.
embody many of the facets of the rocks you represent.
Thanks a lot.
um, I want to talk a little bit. I know I'm overstaying my welcome, but very quickly, uh, uh, how does do you do your sessions usually online, offline, both? Do you have a preference?
I do both. Usually, I do the initial conversations online. So, unless until you meet the person face to face, you don't get an idea of the person, right? And there it moves on pretty much quickly onto WhatsApp and weekly calls.
Right.
And then once a month, I do a video call. So, it's a 90-day program. Within that, it's a mix of everything. It's not like I tell them, don't call me. They can at any point in time. Within 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock is my time. So,
Do you
it's a very,
find?
it's a
Sorry. Please go ahead. It's a very
very interactive relationship that I built with Mike because it's behavioral change, right? So I need to know how they are feeling, what's going on in their mind,
regular
and
basis.
yes, and what's preventing them, and they hit a plateau. There's the first 2 weeks they're all very enthusiastic, and then suddenly the dip happens, and that's when you to be really, you know. So yeah,
Do you
it's a
find
mixture of
men
both
and
online
women?
and
Do you find men and women coming to you with fairly different types of situations and cases and problems?
yes, there is a gender difference. I think you had asked me this question earlier, it got skipped. In that the basic general indigestion issues are obviously the same for men and women, and that acidity, indigestion, bloating, these are symptoms that that affect both men and women. But when it comes to women, we have the estrogen hormone, which is the root cause of a lot of conditions. So from the time a woman is born till the time she, I think, becomes perimenopausal, she's constantly coping with estrogen imbalances. So the issues with the gut issues relating to estrogen deficiency or too much of it is different. Men, on the other hand, come with a lot of stress
Hmm.
because the workplace, especially in their 40s, when they're in that peak of their careers, a lot is taken out of their bodies, minds, and they usually have liver issues and they have cortisol stress issues, which are again can be reversed with the fixing the gut. So those are the key differences between the two. But usually the early symptoms, which are indigestion, acidity, bloating, which then can become irritable bowel syndrome and all that, those are common to both sexes. But
Absolutely. Final question. Uh, share some observations you've had specifically with regard to the kind of mental or psychological changes for the better that you've seen in some of your clients who've done the program reasonably successfully.
the first thing is the energy levels. They definitely shoot up when you make changes in your diet. That's the first thing that most of my clients say. I don't get up with more brain fog anymore. I don't feel like, I have to really drag myself out of the bed. I'm able to get up and start the day on a high note. The low energy aspect is definitely within almost the first month, my clients get that benefit.
Hmm,
And that's again largely due to changes in the diet.
hmm,
And the second thing that happens on a very biological molecular level is their whole process of clearing the gut,
hmm,
all of that retention of gas, bloating, heaviness, all that disappears because again the plan is engineered to get that if have that effect on the body. And the third thing, which is the most important according to me, is sleep. Their sleep pattern improves a lot because when you eat in a certain manner and at certain times of the day, then you also sleep better. And when you sleep better, the gut microbes get a rest as well. So that's the only time when you sleep that the brain gets the time to do all the fixing. The limbic system gets into action. You can flush out, the brain flushes out toxins. The digestion process has stopped completely because a lot of energy in the day goes into digestion. People are eating so much, maybe not eating too much, but eating several times.
Sure.
So all that makes a huge difference. The sleep pattern improves, and sleep, according to me, is the second pillar after nutrition, after food. I even put it above exercise.
Mhm.
Exercise is important. Some movement is important. Even just basic movements that one requires to do should be done. I mean, not being sedentary is the biggest problem among most of us. But yeah, sleep, if you can get your 7 hours of sleep and get into deep sleep, which is happens in at around 3 o'clock in the morning, when if you're not watching Netflix and you're sleeping, then you're definitely doing good to your body. So yeah, these are the three key benefits that people have felt. And of course, the weight loss happens. As
Right.
I told you, inch loss, weight loss comes because
But
of the
that's a
changes that you've
byproduct. I mean, that can't or
byproduct.
perhaps shouldn't be your sort of main goal.
Correct. That's true.
The particularly the two the second and third points you mentioned from personal experience, I can share that I don't think it'll be overstating it that they would bring unquantifiable sense of well-being to an individual to sort of feel a renewed sense of vitality and energy and to have good, restful, rejuvenating sleep, particularly in the kind of world and lives we inhabit today. And therefore, that becomes absolutely invaluable what you're doing, even very, very directly in terms of the mental state of your clients. So, thank you very, very much. These are conversations that can pretty much go on endlessly, but we will put a cap on it for now. And it's been extremely interesting, educative, insightful, all of the things that I was most certain they would be once we spoke last. All the very best. Have a lovely time in the mountains, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karthik. It was a pleasure being with talking to you.